everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Before we get started, there are a couple of housekeeping items that I would like to share with all of you. The first is that we will be having a live Q&A at the end of this webinar. So if you have any questions at any time during this webinar, you can feel free to enter your questions under the Q&A tab on your screen. And then as we will also be doing some polling questions too, that we would love to have your participation in as well. Before we get started with the webinar today, we do have a legal disclaimer that we would like to share with all of you. So I will leave this up here on the screen so that you can take a glance through it. Okay, with that, the topic of today's webinar is tackling the patient billing problem, turn financial stress into success. Our speakers for today are going to be Susan Fink-Childs, who's the founder at Evolution Healthcare Consulting, and Erica Patitucci, who is the solutions engineer for Clara. With that, I will turn the webinar over to our first speaker, Susan Fink-Childs.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me again, and welcome everyone. Let me go back to this next slide. Let me see. Oh, excuse me. I was on the correct one. So welcome everyone, and I'm sure that a lot of you have your stories about dealing with patients and billing and how to get them happy to pay their bill, and hopefully this will make it a little easier. I will start with a little story. My stepmother actually started chemotherapy, and it was her third kind of cancer. And the doctor said to her, you know, we should do this treatment and we should do this, this, and this. And she was kind of tired of it. She didn't know how much time she would have anyway. And she said to him, I think I'd rather jump out of a plane than pay for this because I don't know if it's going to be worth it. And that's the way a lot of people feel. So we have to put the worth and the value into everything. And remember, too, that approximately a third of the people with chronic conditions avoid seeing a doctor. And a lot of that is because of the cost. They don't know it's easy to come in. They don't know they have a different payment plan or a different schedule. So it's up to us to put that across and make it, again, easy for them to pay their bill. So what I will tell you is approximately 40% of your patients now have high deductibles. It used to be 20 or 30%, but it's grown a lot since 2003 and the introduction of them. In fact, the Wall Street Journal in 2003, when only rich people could really afford to put together or put aside some money for a health savings account, said to use it as an investment, not even to use it, but just to use it as an investment and put money in it until you're 65. So then it was considered only for higher income and people who could actually put money away or might be a little smarter with their medical needs on their own. But now with, again, 40% of your patients having this, we're all in that boat, right? And actually the people who have had high deductibles have had to be healthier because they didn't want to go to the doctor. So they've learned to take care of themselves. So they are consumer and self-care driven. They will go to other places and look for care, right? And they will be a lot healthier because, again, they've had to take care of themselves already. But they are the ones who will go to the pharmacist and ask them, or they'll go to an urgent care instead of an emergency room, things like that, and to your competition. So we always want to be the first resource of care. Thinking about what you can disclose to your patients, a lot of people ask me, a lot of my clients ask me, what can I tell the patient? I'm working out a deal, and what can I tell the patient? Well, you know, they see the EOBs because they see the EOBs coming to them, and the EOB actually says, right, it says what was charged, it says what was allowed, and then the patient responsibility. Well, that allowed amount is your contractual amount. You don't have to tell them it's your contractual amount, but that's what it is, and they see that. So I say, you know, you can talk about that because they see that anyway. Also, in your contract, there are two different measures and two different paragraphs that say two different things. One paragraph says only collect what you can and what you have to according to your contract. And the other says collect whatever you can according to their coverage. Well, if you've done eligibility, which everyone does now, and you say they have a high deductible, you can ask them for that money ahead of time. It used to be that insurance is sometimes limited how much you could ask for, but that's really gone by the wayside. You can ask for however much is remaining and on a previous balance. So again, Everyone sees the EOB. The patient sees it, you see it, and there's no reason that you really can't talk to anybody about that because it's all right there in front of them anyway. Thinking about your unique value. Everyone has value, right? So what is your unique value? You want to put that on your website. 83% of your patients want to look at your website first. And you want to put that financial information on there as well, because they're looking for that. For example, there's an entire cash paying population out there. And if you put something on there for self-pay or underinsured or a high deductible, they will pay attention to that. The key is to use the word benefits so that people think that some of it is covered or not. They're also not aware that they're going to have a different fee schedule and it's lower than what they fear that the cost may be. So really getting online and sending that information out there, put that out there with your financial policy and let them know exactly where they stand, because price is always the first question that's asked, right? What do I get for my money? That's what people want to know. What is the value of my purchase with you? And you want to spread that across with your website and give that information. Again, you always want to be the first resource for any of your patients looking for care. Now, I've written a lot about emotional intelligence, and you can do a lot with emotional intelligence, and it's made up of a lot of skills that your people already have. You're doing that with patients already. You're showing compassion, you're showing personal awareness and group awareness and social competencies. You're working on your own with each patient, showing compassion as you ask for money. That really makes a difference, right? When you ask it the right way. It's not easy to ask for money. Just ask anybody who does. But if you know your patients and you know how to approach them, that's what makes it different for you. And it's also, this is what you're doing. You're being aware and recognizing one's demeanor and approach. It's the something in it that makes you, you, and me, the something that makes us different from each other. It's our demeanor. And if we're all aware of that and we're respectful of that, it's much easier to work with each patient. Each patient might be terrified when they come in the door. If we reduce the fear, for example, all these things make a difference. And people do have relationships with their front desk, right? They really do. They walk in, they smile, and hopefully they're reaching for their wallet as they smile. The personal and social competencies, again, aware of how your impression and relationship with others. So how are you asking for that money? Are you asking nicely? Are you demanding it? Are you making eye contact? Think about that. And there is a physical connection of how your rational and emotional work together. Emotion hits your brain before you can actually think about things. That's why we hit cues. If there's a patient that walks in that's difficult to deal with, that comes up in our brain. But we have to remember that they may not have felt well that day. Things like that. That's where the emotional intelligence comes in. It's about the heart and the mind, and it's about how everything comes together. It's also about your critical thinking. When you're at the front desk and you're collecting money or you're dealing with a patient with a payment agreement, that's a lot of critical thinking. Excuse me. Again, it's knowing your patients, and that makes a big difference. Even your approach, and of course, everything with emotional intelligence has to do with a positive outcome. Think about this. You can approach the patient with, you have to pay your bill and I don't care how you pay it, you just got to pay it. Or you can be really nice and they can remember that you actually tried to help them pay their bill by being nice and understanding about it. And that's what you want the patient to remember your office is like when they're collecting money, having it be a pleasant experience, not a demand. And emotional intelligence will help you with that. So a lot of times when I work with practices, there's a lot of issues between the front desk and the back office and the billing. Once you've worked the front desk, we know it's very hard. A lot of people want to go to billing or somewhere else. And once you're in billing, sometimes people don't want to go back out front. But really, your front desk, you know, is a massive part of your revenue cycle. So what we're doing now is we are reinforcing all offices. So think about how you can support each other. I think there are a lot of different ways. For example, if the billing office is just available for the front desk, there are so many offices that I work with where they say, you know, billing just isn't available when we call them from the front desk to help us with a patient. So the billing can train the front desk as far as they can go, but you determine that number. Is it because it's a difficult patient? Is it because it's a certain monetary amount that you don't want to ask them for at the front? Whatever it is, build those bridges and establish those boundaries as, when do I go to the back to get some help? And if you know that someone's behind you to help, then I'll work with much more confidence, right? I think that really helps if you know that. So there's going to be a quick poll, which Yvette is going to do now, and then we'll come back.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Yes, audience, we have our first quick poll question for you. If you look at the poll tab on your screen, there'll be a little red dot, and that will show you our polling question for today as well as the answer options. The question is, how would you rate your patient's ability to reach you with questions? So if you could take a moment here and provide us your response, we would really appreciate it. Okay, let me give it a couple more seconds here. Okay, thank you to those of you who participated in that first polling question. And now we'll turn the webinar back over to Susan.
Thank you. And remember, as you are connecting with your patients, it's a beautiful thing, right? And the way we connect is so important. And remember, they anticipate and they're reaching out to you. So as you reach back to them, it communicates and affirms that relationship. And that's really important because when patients choose you as a provider, they want to know that they've chosen the right person. I know every time I speak with my doctor, I think, yes, I've chosen the right person, even though it's probably the MA or nurse that's helping me. But it's that affirmation and that connection that really makes the difference. So one thing you can do is give people the power to do what they're supposed to do and watch those collections rise, right? If everyone is trained on the same version and you have staff training and everyone hears the same thing, it becomes kind of a classroom environment and people turn to each other for references. What did they say about this? What did they say about that? And they remember it more and they reference each other and they actually build a better bond together. So that's what you definitely want to do is have that staff training. You can have people come in house. I do it. Other people do it. You can record it and have new staff watch it so they get some training too. But that way, everyone has the same version and they're all up to date on the same thing. It also allows them, because they're on the same version, to convey the same message. I am a ghost patient sometimes, and I will call up ahead of time to find out if I can't pay my bill, how much I should pay. And depending upon the version, they'll give me great answers. But if they haven't learned the latest version, they might give me different amounts. So educating your staff really keeps them up on there. And emotional intelligence, again, bringing out that compassion, start it with a patient's story. It really makes a great difference. When you have an average collector, they will collect 83% of their goal. But when you have a well-trained collector, especially with emotional intelligence, and if you know the patients or they're just good with the patients, they collect 163%. That's because they listen to them and they work with them and they don't cow down to them and say, oh, I feel really sorry for them. And then they become a victim, right? And then they don't collect anything, or they could become too mean and become a bully and then they don't want to pay either. So the key is, again, keeping that nice, even keel with emotional intelligence. And that's for internal and external collections as well. Your front desk and time of service, that is so important. And you can share this report with them too. But that is what is, of course, collectible at the front that day. And you just, compare it to what could have been collected and what they're doing. But let them know how they're doing. This little sign here that says doesn't necessarily make you great, but what makes you great is when you reach back and help somebody else becoming great. It really, really makes a difference. And it's just like volunteering and it's just like helping or anything else. When you help someone and you see them do it, it's really rewarding. And that's true with productive meetings. When you work with someone and you try something different, you're communicating and connecting, that really makes a very big difference. Think about the times that you had your updated versions and you're keeping everybody up with that, right? You can use meetings for that as well. But as some people implement and look at the big ideas and the small ideas, also think about that because the small ideas are worth trying. We have a 30-day rule a lot of times where I go, and you'll know immediately if it works or not. For a couple of weeks, you'll know if it'll work. So you can instigate it. You can do it, you can keep going with it and it will either work or not, like I said. But when you do it and you bring out that initiative in someone, it actually has them bring out another idea. And that's even better because you want to bring out the initiative in everyone. And even those small ideas can become something very big. And your quiet people won't often say something. But when you have a productive meeting where people feel like they can speak, that makes a very, very big difference in what they say. And you want them to be a part of recognizing and feeling that success with any changes that you make as well. So thinking about other industries with emotional intelligence and how it really helps with your bottom line, because it really does. So some supervisors in a manufacturing plant actually had and staff were trained on emotional intelligence, and their lost time accidents were reduced by 50%. Because you're just more aware of what's going on around you. And then also the formal grievances went from about 15 a year to 3, because again, people understood each other's role a little bit more. Hewlett Packard did that first, the cross training, so that we can all feel what it's like to do someone else's role. And if you've ever noticed, when somebody really knows what they're doing, they know what happens before their role and after. And that's what really makes nice streamless processes. And that's true with financial things as well. If you have 2 or 3 people speaking with one patient, you want both of them to know exactly what's going on so that we're very respectful of the patient and we're not redundant with what we're working with the patient. At L'Oreal, sales agents selected on the basis of certain emotional capabilities actually raised their sales by $250,000. That's amazing. Now, when some people are trained and not the staff, but just the managers are trained, production goes up 17%. So you can see it makes a very big difference. Just getting together and doing this and reducing your turnover is a beautiful thing. Again, we're all just working together and we're doing that all day anyway. So a lot of times sharing numbers really helps people feel their success and it shows to them exactly what to do. Now, I have noticed that looking for patterns makes a very big difference, and that's very good to do. Looking at your insurance receivables analysis for your insurance and patient, which numbers do you want to share with physicians and staff? Physicians, we know, want to look at certain numbers. They want to look at CPTs, they want to look at money, but really we have to explain to them how many patients now have your high deductible policies. And you can actually show them that with your system, show them a percentage of that. Show them the AR, show them things in black and white. That's what they're used to responding. Just like a lab report, they're used to looking at things in black and white and diagnosing. And that's how we can get the information across and show them exactly what you're doing and the progress that you're making. And when you see these reports, a lot of these are probably being shared with providers, but not necessarily with staff. Managers may see it, but the front desk may not see it. So again, sharing a denial report or something like that, you can even have certain goals if you're not doing well with certain things. You don't have to give away everything, right? But we don't want to bombard with information either. We also want to come up with a nice little dashboard so there's not too much information so that we can look at it and have a really good impact from what we're looking at and know where to move from there. So that financial information to help us move forward is very important, and who it's shared with is also important. Let everybody feel a part of that success. And as we're feeling that success, we're tracking, we're benchmarking, and we're identifying, of course, those patients in your practice management systems. But also look at refining your staff interaction policies. Managers and staff updating physicians during those meetings is really important. Again, it's their time to do that. And again, if you want them to react to something, if you're speaking with them about it, they'll think about it. But if it's presented to them in a written format, they'll take it in and look at it a little differently. This is how everyone stays up to date with everything. And that way it's a continual consensus. As you make changes with your policies and procedures, nothing is a surprise. And that's when it happens easier because everyone is working together. And I really like that because that's the way it should be. Now, physicians, please, please stand behind us. I believe that physicians and administrators create those policies together, and then the physicians stand behind and say, I don't wear the gloves and you don't do the medical procedures. And that's a really good benefit for me because I don't want to do the procedures, but I'm happy to do a payment plan with the patient. but understand the percentage. Let them know how many have. And also, any collections turnover, make sure that the MDs approve, because there are things that go on in that room that we do not or may not understand. So always make sure before you turn over anyone for collections to make sure the MDs know about that. And again, I won't wear those gloves if you don't make those agreements. So let them know, please, not to discuss the payment plans. There is usually one doctor or maybe two that discuss payment plans with their physician, with their patients. Please let them know. As soon as they do that, it renders you powerless, and no one will ever get a dime again, because that provider has just told them it's okay not to pay your bill. So please talk with them. The managers may have to have a one-on-one with each doctor, or you can do it at general staff. It's usually not that hard to take care of. They're doing it to be kind, and they're doing it because the patient is paying them, and we know that. But we can all work together, and if the physician stands behind you, then that's all we need to know, and then that strengthens everything. And also, if your physician supports your staff with practice-wide policies, your staff will add to that loyalty factor. If I know my doctor's behind me, I'm going to be loyal to you. If I'm trying to do something and the doctor does something else, why would I do it? So it's so important, as you know, for everyone to stand together. So think about the patients and their financial engagement and where they are, right? I was in an office one time, and a patient walked up to the front desk to check in, and I heard the front desk and the rest of the lobby heard the front desk say to that patient, you know what? You can't be seen. You have a bad debt, and it has to be paid before you're seen. As we all know, that should have been addressed way before that patient came in. It should have been addressed as they tried to make the appointment for that money to be paid before they were seen, whatever your protocols are. But if you put the patient in a place of shame, if you back anyone into a corner, what are they going to do? It's not going to be very good, right? It's certainly not going to want them to make them be with you. It's going to make everyone else in the room feel awkward too, and wondering why this wasn't approached before. Another thing you can think about is that patients do not count in days when they're late on a bill. I don't count 30 days for my office visit. I just get a bill. I know if it's late or if it's current or if it's overdue, whatever. Now, first of all, I pay my bills, so hopefully they're not late. But when you can do that with your bills, you can say due now, past due, or really overdue, or going to collections. But change those statuses and maybe shorten the billing cycle even. It really makes a difference. Sometimes you can send it right after the EOB because they're getting the EOB, and that way you're sending it and they're kind of getting it in the same week, and they might even open the EOB and look at it and see how it compares to your bill. So we get the patient more engaged in that. Also, your statement says a lot. I know that there's not much space to put a message, but that message really means a lot. The words please and thank you go a long way. It takes nothing to put manners in there, and people like to hear please and thank you in their name more than anything. So if you say thank you for your current payment, or please remit within 10 days, or call our office for further support, speak with Susan about your bill. But again, manners are really good. Your statement is great messaging. We're able to text statements now. We're able to do store statements on the portal. It all works really well. But remember, that is a very important method of communication that makes a difference. With physicians and checks and balances, I have an accounting degree, so I have to put this in here. If you're dealing with money, please remember that you're dealing with money, and there are changes. Anytime you change your financial policies, also look at your money policies as well with your accounts receivables. So remember that your presence alone, if they know that they're being watched, then that makes a difference too. If they know you're balancing batches every day, if they know you're doing random audits, things like that. If you still have a front desk drawer with cash, a lot of people don't keep cash. I don't know if I agree with that or not, but that's their option. Make sure you count that money to the penny every single day if you have change in there. When people are looking to embezzle, they start small. They'll start with a drawer. They'll start with a copay. They'll start with a credit card. They'll start with something. They start small. If they see any breaks in the barriers, that's where they go for it. If they see that you're watching and there's checks and balances everywhere, they'll find greener pastures elsewhere. And also thinking about your personnel manual, have it in there It's instant firing. If you're caught embezzling or taking money or doing anything inappropriate, it's instant firing. Just remember. And then also have physicians keep abreast of the finances. They are your check and balance. They are the manager's check and balance. So if you can have them look at what you're doing and you're going over reports with them and looking at things financial, balancing it to the general ledger and the bank, remember that you're working with them to do that. So let them know that's what's going on. We all should see the patterns. And once those patterns change, then we start looking at why. So those financial checks and balances, as you change your protocols, are very, very important. Petty cash is also not the same money drawer. Petty cash is a different drawer. It's reconciled. It's opened by one person, and you have receipts for every single expenditure. It's for once in a while expenses. It is not the typical money drawer. So please don't put them in the same, because that's waiting for someone to just take something away. Now, the patient. I actually saw this sign. I was in an airport, and there was this little kiosk sign that you punched on the way out. Were you happy with your visit? Now, wouldn't it be nice just to have this on the way out? And they say doing surveys is a very good thing, and we have found that to be true. So they say to send a survey either immediately or 3 weeks after. A week after, they haven't thought about it enough. 3 weeks gives you time, but maybe they won't answer. I usually get my surveys within 2 or 3 days. And I would say I usually answer them within 2 or 3 days. But if you're not going to do it immediately, wait about 3 weeks and then send it out. It gives people to mull it over. But think about it. Even if you ask these 3 questions on your continual survey, you can find patterns. If you're changing staff around, you can see the differences in the different departments. You could say things like, what do you like about making an appointment? What made it difficult? And what would make it better for you? What would make it easier for you? Or how was your process with the nurse taking your vitals? Was it pleasant? Things like that. You can actually ask very simple things. Do you remember Elmo asked, I think it was about a month ago, how are you today? And everybody went into all these details, right? But sometimes the simplest questions can really get the best answers, and they're very succinct. So even if you have a little sign as you walk out the office, that's fine. It's very important to know what people think. And this also affects your payments, the value-based contracts, everything, their opinion. And when the insurers ask patients, it can affect your income. So think about that. So I talked about reducing the fear before, and these are really a lot of the questions that you will get. I remember speaking with a physician, and he said patients usually have 4 or 5 questions, and they're included in here. What am I getting for my money? How much do I really have to pay today? That's the one I added. Where is the value of my care? Can I be seen today? Because everyone wants to be seen today. And do I have 24/7 access to my physician? And the answers to all of those really should be very positive, right? Certainly with the portal, there's 24/7 access. Hopefully they can be seen today. But this is what patients gauge their money on, right? They want to pay for the value. And if you have to make me wait 2 hours and tell me that you were down a nurse and that was why, it's going to be really hard to get money from me. If you make me happy, then I'm happy to pay my bill. It's that simple. Every single facet of care enters into how happy the patient is to pay their bill. And that makes a huge difference. And if they feel comforted, they become relaxed, they trust your practice, and they're more apt to pay you sooner, because it's just a beautiful relationship, and they feel that relationship, not just the bill. So patients' first impressions really, really make a difference. Think about that. Think about your door. And we often don't go out into the front foyer or even into the front lobby, because we stay back in the office area. But you can see the first impressions are very important. And 96% of your patients have anticipation of their visit from their last visit. And it could have been a visit from you or somebody else. So if they had a really good visit from you walking in the door on their last visit, they're going to walk in and they're a little happier to maybe pay their copay. But if they were very upset with Susan in the front, you know how she is. She asked for that copay and she's not nice. Maybe they don't have such a good impression. Excuse me. So that can truly make a difference. But 12 seconds is when first impressions are made. So if you have a bee's nest in your foyer, you may not even know it because you never go in there. The patients may say something, but something may never be done. But if you look at that picture on the right, that's a greeting for the patient. That's the first thing that the patient sees. Now, it's kind of blurry because I had to take it very quickly, but it's not a good sign. It says payment expected at check-in, sign up for patient portal, appointments not canceled will incur a fee, and the I is missing from incur. There's no welcomes, there's no please, there's no thank you, and I'm here registering for my appointment. Why are you telling me I'm going to be incurred a fee if I'm not, if, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's not friendly, it's not welcoming. So just be very aware of what you're putting out there. Somebody obviously wanted just put the latest policies there with no heart, and that's what makes the difference. Use heart. And remember that when, if there's a message about a no-show or something like that, you want to be very kind and gentle about it because sometimes no-shows are not intentional and sometimes patients do it all the time. And we'll talk about that in a moment too. But remember, they're not going to offer you money until what they consider they have received is a value, unless it's a copay and they know that they're supposed to do that right in the beginning. But you still want it to be a pleasant experience. And that's true with everything. This is a sign that I show a lot because it makes a huge difference and it's a beautiful thing. Now, this scale will only give you numerical reflection of your relationship with gravity. That's it. It cannot measure character, beauty, talent, purpose, possibility, strength, or love. Now, I would want to tell my physician everything after seeing this. Emotional intelligence, you've totally accepted me for what I am. You're not going to judge me. You're just going to take care of me. That makes me want to pay my bill. I feel wonderful with you. I think that's absolutely wonderful. So think about that. A lot of people have utilized this. Now, a lot of patients also with high deductibles think another visit means another charge. For example, they're not aware of a global period. So if you tell them you've had the surgery, you're going to be coming back in 6 weeks and then in 2 weeks and then 2 weeks after that, but that's included in your period that you've already paid for the surgery. There's no cost for this visit. So let's make this appointment and make sure you come back. But again, if patients are afraid it's going to cost something, they may not come. So being very, very communicative with them, being open with them, with your billing department, talking with them ahead of time. We see you have a high deductible and you have Blue Cross, you have United, you have Aetna, you have whatever. This would be your amount for coming in. We can work out a payment plan, whatever you want to do. But remember, you don't want to lose that potential income due to a no-show because patients, again, don't realize it may not cost anything, or it may be a follow-up visit, which may be a lower charge than the longer visit that was initially there. Again, they're very afraid of that. So educating your patients and letting them know, that makes a huge difference in their approach and whether they will come back. We make them feel comfortable and wanted. This is actually a sign that was in a practice I was working in a month ago, and they were very proud to show this to me, because I know that all of you have noticed the patients have become a little more aggressive, a little more demanding, and some not so nice. So an office I go to as a patient also has a sign that's similar to this. But respecting the staff is very important. It's okay to listen to someone if they're upset. It's okay if someone's giving you a little bit of a hard time, but we have to draw the line. There has to be respect, right? We establish our boundaries. We love our patients, but we have to establish those boundaries. So if somebody is screaming at you and you're at the front desk, of course, you're going to hopefully get the manager and they can help. But if you're a manager and they're screaming at you and you're in the hallway, of course, we all know the first thing to do is take them away from the audience. And there are certain things you can say to them. And you can even begin with, so there are certain things that we do not allow here. If you'd like to speak like a human being to my staff and myself, we'd be happy to help you. Would you like a moment? Ask them how you can help them, because they're just irate. They're not even listening. They're not even paying attention. The worst thing you can say, of course, is calm down, right? Because that's the worst thing you could possibly say. We all know that. And there is no payment that's worth your pride. There's not. I one time had to actually call the police on someone who was giving my biller such a hard time that she was crying and he wouldn't leave. And he refused to leave. And I had to call the police. By the way, they ended up paying their bill. But truly, we have to respect our staff. We stand behind them. And patients have to know that there's certain protocols that are not appropriate, and it's okay to do that. You can use words like, I completely understand. I can help you with that. I assure you, we most certainly will. My favorite, excuse me, when you're all done, my friend Gail used to do this in the office. You're all set. And that will let them know you're good. You're all done. We've taken care of it. That's good. Never respond with, if you're not sure about something or not understanding. You can say something like, just to clarify, this is what you said. I'm not good with names. I'm just not good with them. And what I will do when I'm speaking with someone, because you've gotten into the problem, then I forget their name, right? And I will say to them, can you please give me your full name so I write it down correctly? And then I get the whole thing because I'm embarrassed to say I've forgotten their name. So there are ways to work around these things, but they're all positive things. And of course, letting them speak first, we all know that. But really just working with the patient and guiding them and inserting phrases as you speak with them really makes a huge difference. We all know this. We've all guided them through. But the key with everybody here is that we all work together and we all respect each other and we all have each other's back as we go through it. Now, there are only certain patients that are really going to give you a hard time. And there was one patient I actually had to check in all the time because of that. But, that's okay. We all work together. These are your 6 primary emotions. And remember these, because if you only meet 2 of these, we've done our job. People are coming in. They're afraid. They're afraid of how much the bill is going to be. They're afraid of a diagnosis. They're afraid that they're finally going to tell their doctor they're feeling chest pains. They haven't before, but they are going to this time. They're also disgusted because they're fed up with the whole medical system and it took them 30 years to make their appointment or whatever they're upset about, or they're just not feeling well. And when I'm not feeling well, my guard is not up. And it's just not, I'm just not a happy camper. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that. Very few people are happy when they go to the doctor, unless it's for a well visit or I've recuperated my surgery. It's great. Or I've lost weight or something good. But just remembering this makes a huge difference. Now, as the patient approaches the agreement, remember that they can be terrified or they can feel welcomed. Please have the space feel like it's actually human. Don't make it look like a jail cell. Have some pictures of people in there. Have a plant in there. Have it be friendly. Have some nice pictures on the wall. Don't have it just be a desk and a chair and another desk or something like that. Have something so it feels familiar and it feels comfortable. Put blues in there. That's a healing color. So remember that, because they can either feel welcome or totally terrified, and we want them to feel comfortable as we make those arrangements, and always in privacy. We're going to have another quick poll with Yvette, please.
Thank you, Susan. So audience, we have another polling question that we would like your participation in. Again, if you go to the polling tab on your screen, there's a red dot and you should be able to see the polling question, which is, how quickly do you usually respond to patient queries regarding billing? And I'll give some time here for you guys to select your response. Okay. Oh, we're still getting some votes, so I'll give it a couple seconds here. Okay, great. Thank you to those of you who participated in that polling question. And now we'll turn it back over to Susan.
Thank you very much. And first, I will say that I think it's sometimes difficult for them to reach us on hold missed phone calls. I think that I commend that one person for saying that, because we know it's more than one, because that happens with every office because your lines are filled. They're going up. But the first option, reach us easily with multiple channels. That's the way to go, because people have their preferences as well. So that's really good. So look at this picture. This is my stepmother. She jumped out of a plane. She actually did it. And she did the chemo. And she lived for like 4 or 5 more years. So it was very cool. So we can all find ways to get the bills paid. We really can. And it's working with our patients and their approaches and what their priorities are. And that's how we can get the bills paid, hopefully happily paid. So remember too that no matter what happens in healthcare, people will still be people. We still need to feel cared for as a patient. If we find the right staff members and relay our missions and goals and we carry those out with the most stellar standards and most compassionate care, you can separate the money from the care. My goal is for the mother who has a 10-month-old kid and is afraid to come into the doctor because she has a high deductible, for her to be able to call your office and know that she can come in, have her child cared for, pay her bill, and be very thankful for the care. And you're glad that you were able to take care of that child. That's my goal. And if you make it accessible and make it so that people can reach out to you and it's easy to pay their bill, then that's what we all want. So, things you can do now. With every presentation, I try to think about what can be done now. So think about transparency, initiating trust. Get some reports together. What are your favorite reports? If you love them, there's a reason. Share them and tell people why, and then have them engaged in part of it. And then work with your staff one-on-one. Ask them, what can make your job easier to do? What would make it easier for you to collect money? Is the billing department really backing you up? Is the front desk asking you good, valid questions? Or have you shown them this 5 million times before? How can we make it better so it sticks? You want to connect everybody. And that's that in-house training as well. You can have people come from the outside. You can have in-house training with your own staff, however you want to do it. And also look for those natural demeanors, the ones that are just really good with patients. My daughter-in-law works in a vet's office, and she's incredible with the owners of the pets. I tried to get her to come over to the human side, but she wouldn't do it. She is so amazing in calming people down and treating them respectfully. It's amazing. That's exactly what you want. So here are some local resources for you. There are medical societies and associations. And also, if you're a room with other people, your coworkers look to your left and right because they can support and help you with your job. Your staff and patients, all of you work together. Your patients have input with their preferences. And also, if you want to get in touch with me anytime, please consider me a resource. I'm here for questions anytime. And we do have a few things before the question and answer, even though this slide says that. But it has been a pleasure working with you again, Yvette and Erica and Aaron. And I thank you very much. And I'm going to move to the next slide because I think you have demos coming up or polls. There you go.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Susan. Yes, audience, we have our last final polling question. So once again, if you will look to the poll tab on your screen, you will see a red dot. And within that tab, you'll see our third polling question, which is, which patient communication challenges do you encounter regularly? So we'll give some time here for you guys to submit your answers. And for this question, you can select all that apply. So any of those responses that apply to you. Okay, thank you to those of you who participated in that polling question. And with that, I will turn it over to our speaker, Erica.
Thank you. So I see in the poll that the most common answer is managing multiple channels, phone, email, text, portal. And it's funny because, that is one of the biggest issues that I hear from many practices. You have a lot of different places to check communication, and being able to check all those, take the time, listen to voicemails, go somewhere else, check another message. That seems to be a really large problem. It takes a lot of time from staff to do do that. So what you're going to see here is a demo of Clara, where we can actually help you manage those multiple channels, show how everything can be consolidated into one place for staff to be able to respond and read those messages. So with that, I'll have it run the demo. Does your phone ring off the hook? Are you playing phone tag with your patients? Do you have a hard time retaining staff? We can help. Our product Clara can help with office efficiencies by streamlining phone volume into one location and automating common tasks in the patient communication workflow. Let's dive into how we can help. When a patient calls into the practice, they might call a few times before getting a hold of someone or leave a couple of voicemails that need to be listened to and responded to. This can cause long hold times, phone tag, and decreased patient satisfaction. We have multiple ways to integrate into the practice's current phone system. We can give the patient a way to start a conversation by text when they call, thus removing that phone call from ever ringing in the practice. We can also decrease the voicemails that need to be listened to by providing transcriptions and offering the patient a method to text. The office efficiency will increase when there is only Clara to check for voicemails and new messages. With asynchronous communication, the practice is able to handle multiple patient messages at once, and the patient can respond when they have time. Let's look at the office workflow. How many times have you gone to the doctor's as a patient and were given enough forms to make your hands cramp filling them out? How many times did that delay your appointment? Forms, consents, insurance card scanning, all of that takes time before an appointment if the patient is not early. And let's be honest, who's ever early? We can send all of this to a patient days ahead of the appointment with just a simple message to their phone. Patients also always have a million questions before and after their appointment. Most of those are commonly asked questions like, what are the instructions I need before my procedure? How do I care for my wound? Where are you located? All of these can be answered with customized pre-made templates that the office can send out with 2 clicks. Patients can also message in directly from the Clara website. They only need to put in their phone number and birthday. They'll receive a 4-digit code to their phone or email to log in. Now, all of this sounds great to help with office efficiency and patient satisfaction, but there's something else that could make it even better. Clara can automate standard messages. The office can set up automated messages for pre-visit instructions and paperwork collection, appointment reminders, telehealth links, no-show rescheduling, feedback and review collection, and post-appointment follow-up. Not only can some of these messages be automated, but so can some of the follow-up tasks. Patients can respond directly to appointment reminders, and those responses will reflect in the schedule real time. When they need to reschedule, you can also send them a rescheduling link. When a patient doesn't show, a rescheduling link can be sent automatically to get the patient back on the books. After the patient provides feedback on their appointment, they can immediately be prompted to leave a review on the website of your choice. By utilizing Clara within your practice, you can help reduce call volume, optimize your office efficiencies, and reduce the everyday workload of your staff.
That's impressive.
Sorry, audience, I was on mute. Thank you. Thank you, Erica, for that demo. I agree with Susan. That was really impressive. We are now, audience, at the point of the webinar where we're going to do the live Q&A with our speakers today, Susan and Erica. As a reminder, if you have any questions, you can feel free to enter them under the Q&A tab on your screen. And with that, I'll turn the live Q&A over to Susan and Erica.
First of all, let me just say that the pre-made templates are absolutely wonderful, because to me, it's almost like a doctor asking a question and then the patient knows what to answer. It kind of brings out the information. I really like that. I think that's excellent communication. Okay, so let's look. What is a good no-show policy? We can't seem to get ours to stick. That's something I hear a lot. I'll take that, Erica. That's okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a no-show policy when I was a manager, and I loved it, and I still think it's the best one. And it's the first one is a very kind letter saying we understand that you may not have understood that you had to make this appointment, and you may have forgotten it, but understand that we can take care of our patients, and we'd like to have this open. If it happens again, we will be charging your account $45 or $50, whatever you think is appropriate, which would need to be paid before you're seen again. Now, you can't do that with a lot of federal programs, and you have to check in your state of who you can do that with and who you can't. But usually it's just a handful of people. The reason why a lot of people don't make it stick is because they send out that first letter, then someone sends out the no-show again because they've no-showed the second time, but they don't charge them. So the best thing to do is to do it, make it stick, and follow it. I think what you'll find is that only a handful of patients really abuse this, that most people only do it once. I was actually guilty of this with my son's eye appointment. I forgot it. He was a toddler. I didn't even remember I'd forgotten it because obviously I forgot it. And I got this call and I was so embarrassed, but that's 99% of the people. So if you carry it through and then you actually charge and you have the doctor stand behind it, that's when it will stick. Build a better relationship between the front desk and our, let me read this, billing department. Yeah, I kind of covered that in the webinar, which is have them meet together, because the billing will have questions for the front desk and front desk will have questions for billing. If the front desk can look at a screen and say you got this bill because, and you don't have to bother the billing department because of that, that's great. When it gets to the harder questions, if the insurance department is able to do that, if you know where to draw that line, like I said, then that really makes a good line of where people know they can go to someone else for help or what they should know on their own. And the next one. Oh, okay. I covered this too. The patients. How do we convince him not to? Okay, we have a doctor that tells patients not to worry about paying the bills, as he is very sympathetic. How do we convince him not to do that anymore? You have to show him the black and white. You have to show him that he's losing or she's losing money. They're losing money because they're not getting money, because you're telling patients they don't have to pay. You could even show them that particular patient's account and say, this patient owes $5 million and you just told him not to pay. So that doesn't really help us much. So sometimes it's the black and white, like I said, to get through. And I would have a one-on-one with that doctor too and say, I understand you're compassionate, but, just however you can approach them, that's where the emotional intelligence comes in. Would you say anything about that, Erica?
Trying to get myself off mute there. Yeah. I definitely really agree with you. It's, just working through that emotional intelligence, understanding that everybody is, we're all human, we're all people. We all want to be talked to in a way that we feel like we're being heard and somebody isn't just, steamrolling us through what they want to do.
I love that. That's perfect. Can you I'm glad that's on recording. That's really good. I'm nervous about financial information with front desk, but how can I get them to collect more? Show them the reports. Show them your time of service report. And that shows how much can be collected, maximum amount. That usually includes copays and previous balances and what was actually collected for the day. Because again, with the high deductibles, they're going to be paying on some of those previous balances when they come in, along with their copay or whatever they owe. And I would have a little competition with it. I would say, we did this with copays. Whoever collected the most copays one day got a $50 gift card or something like that. And of course, it's just for the initiative and just to show them that it doesn't have to be a horrible, droll thing to do. You can ask them for it, and it works out well. But that's what I would say to do with that, is share those reports with them. You can also do an accounts receivable 90 days plus. We're not happy with the percentage. It needs to be lower. If we lower it by 15% in 30 days, we'll do a pizza party for the department, something like that. But let them see the number so they can feel that number and they feel like they're a part of it, not just told it's getting better, because you want them to actually feel it. And is there anything else? I think that's it. I think that's all we have.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize it keeps putting me on mute when I come on. Thank you, Erica and Susan, for the live Q&A. Audience, we hope that session of live Q&A was helpful to you. With that, we would like to thank you for joining today's webinar. We hope that you found it insightful, beneficial, and helpful, and we wish you all a great rest of your day. Thank you for attending.
Have a wonderful Valentine's.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.